Welcome everyone to the third day. I didn't realize we were kicking things off today, but it's a special pleasure. So the posters are a great way to get us going. We've got a hopping 11 presentations. Each of our presenters has 4 minutes to present. We will follow the order listed in the program on the website. We will do them in batches and pause for questions at the end of each batch. So in the first batch, there are 4. So Jeroen, Moore, Eva, and Kath, followed by a break before we invite Anita, James, and Ursula to present. So let me share my screen. And then invite Jeroen.
Yes.
To take over. Are you there? All right, I'm going to start your 4 minutes now.
Yes. Thank you for the introduction, Jennifer. I'm presenting today on behalf of the entire task and finish group of this project titled Alternative Publishing Platforms. This project, initiated by the Knowledge Exchange in 2022, aims to better understand these platforms within the scholarly communication ecosystem and provide valuable insights to stakeholders in academia for enhancing platform sustainability. Over the past decade, a vibrant ecosystem of so-called alternative open access publishing platforms has emerged, and these platforms address various issues associated with journal publishing beyond just cost. Some of them challenge the traditional journal model and its multiple functions, which include certification, archiving, gatekeeping through editorial selection and peer review, and disseminating research, of course. Alternative platforms aim to break down these functions and may differ from traditional journals in publication processes, governance, and infrastructure. We first published a scoping paper, which you can see on the top left side. In there, we defined alternative publishing platforms as those with a primary focus on content accessibility, transparency, efficiency, and enhancing research quality, rather than prioritizing selectivity, impact, or prestige. These platforms may prioritize publication speed, reforming peer review, enhancing research reproducibility, and addressing publication bias. And in the scoping document, we identified 3 initial platform categories: 1, funder platforms; 2, stakeholder governed platforms; and 3, experimental, innovative publishing platforms. Based on the scoping paper, we launched a survey early this year for alternative publishing platforms to better understand them and look at their features and criteria, and some of them listed on the top right. 45 valid responses from different platforms were received for that survey. To illustrate how alternative publishing platforms can and do differ across all these characteristics, we provide an interactive visualization on the bottom left side of the poster of the 45 platforms that have responded to our survey, enabling users to select a range of characteristics and see which platforms use or facilitate those new aspects and alternative aspects of publishing. The goal of this visualization is to help identify various types of innovation in scholarly publishing and explore the diverse characteristics of existing platforms. It can aid funders and institutions in discussions and discussing which publishing initiatives to support, either based on basic categories or specific attributes like publishing function, disaggregation, open peer review, and business models. Please note that it's not a comprehensive overview or selection tool for alternative publishing platforms. It relies on a limited sample of survey responses and may contain discrepancies. We welcome, therefore, feedback on the results and suggestions for adding more alternative publication platforms in the future versions. And therefore, we will leave the call for entries open. And today we have published our analysis report. It's just online, which you can see on the bottom right of this poster, of our survey results. And in the following months, we hope to engage with research communities and stakeholders on these initial outcomes, and maybe more importantly, to discuss possible next steps in this area. Thank you for listening.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, I will invite Moore to please take the mic.
Jen, we're just waiting for Moore to accept her panelist invitation. So Moore, if you can hear me, if you could just accept your panelist invitation, then you'll be able to come onto the screen. Thanks, Moore.
Yes, hello. I'm just trying to, okay.
You ready? I'm going to start your 4 minutes now.
Yes.
Go.
Hi, everyone. I'm talking to you and presenting as the publishing manager of Tilburg University Open Press. Tilburg University Open Press started as a diamond open access library-based university press situated within the social sciences and humanities landscape. It was launched as part of Tilburg University's Open Science Action Plan in 2020, with the goal of publishing books such as monographs, textbooks, and theses written by university scholars. Since its establishment, the Open Press has published 31 books and still counting, and we noticed a user traffic growth of over 400% on our online platforms in the past year. A key element of our Open Press and our focus for the poster today is how we can support the academic community and raise the voice of early career researchers. We see library-based presses as a trusted ally to early career researchers and facing many challenges, especially in the SSH fields, by leveraging the advantages offered by Diamond open access models to foster a vibrant and inclusive scholarly community. For example, early career researchers depend on book publications and on research grants for open access book publishing, while this field already faces funding challenges compared to other sciences and disciplines. Therefore, we explore how we can effectively engage with early career researchers by addressing challenges like traditional publishing norms, limited resource access, and reconciling disciplinary expectations with open science principles. As you can see in the circular illustration in our poster here, our explorations have led us to identify a potentially symbiotic relationship between Tilburg Open Press and early career researchers. First, Open Press engages with a sustainable scholarly communication system. We enrich the open access book publishing landscape by being a trusted place where early career researchers can disseminate relevant local research and promote language and disciplinary diversity to the broader public. In addition, with Creative Commons license, authors retain control during the publication process, as well as their creative rights. Second, we noticed that with interactive publishing and experimentation with digital publishing, we can increase engagement with the general public and expand the exposure of books. Our most viewed books were published in such interactive formats, showing an increase in potential audience and citations early career researchers can highly benefit from. Thus, Open Press can be viewed as a platform where SSH researchers can increase their symbolic capital. In return, early career scholars' production provides the content and bibliodiversity necessary for Tilburg Open Press to keep growing. A final key element in this symbiotic relationship is community building. It is both a challenge and a future focus of ours at Tilburg Open Press. We're currently planning workshops to engage with and teach early career researchers at Tilburg University about open access publishing. In addition, we hope to promote more collaboration and community exposure by experimenting with collaborative publishing platforms such as Manifold and by providing print-on-demand options by partnering up with My Bestseller, for example. Such a platform allows affordable, not-for-profit printing of books, and more importantly, provides exposure for our books on popular platforms such as Amazon and Ball.com. In these ways, Open Press can empower researchers to actively participate in the open science movement, reassuming scholarly control over the publication process and assuring an inclusive and sustainable research ecosystem within the SSH domains. Thank you very much for listening.
More perfectly timed. Thank you very much. We are now going to go to Eva.
Hello, yes. My name is Eva Melinščak Zlodi. I'm a librarian at the University of Zagreb Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. And within the library, I'm responsible for the FF Open Press, which is an institutional platform for open access books, something very similar to the previous poster. But although this role led me to the world of open access book publishing, I will not talk about this particular case today, but instead I will try to talk about an effort to build something broader, well, not much broader, because in Croatia, even something that is a nationwide endeavor is still quite small from the global perspective, but still. I will also talk about something that is still non-existent and only in the final preparatory phase, because when we were submitting the abstract earlier this summer, we were not yet sure about the final timeline. So this presentation actually takes place before the announcement and the official launch. But it is a nice opportunity and I guess very appropriate to present it at the OASPA conference. So what is the Croatian initiative for open scholarly books and what we are trying to achieve? Before I start answering these questions with a lot of optimism, let me provide a brief and perhaps somewhat less optimistic overview of state of open access book publishing in Croatia. I must say that within Croatian academic landscape, there are various infrastructures that do support open access. There's a national platform for open access journals, Melinščak, and a functional community governed repository network, DABR. And further to that, we have a national subsidy program for open access journals published on Melinščak that is very strongly incentivizing diamond journals. There is also a National Association of Journal Editors, functional as a sort of national capacity center. However, all of these support mechanisms are currently completely absent for book publishers. And as an additional challenge, Croatian book publishers face very limited readership for their books, especially if they are published in Croatian language. And that's why every infrastructural development has to rely primarily on non-market incentives. Today, academic books are still predominantly published only in print, and unfortunately, existing subsidies do not encourage open access publishing at all. Exception to this state is seen in only several institutions, and those are exactly the institutions behind this initiative, and you can see on the posters which are those, and we are hoping that we can make a change in the system, something similar to what happened in Croatia almost 20 years ago with journals. The initiative for open scholarly books encompasses three key aspects. Firstly, we aim to initiate and to create a community of practice for exchange of knowledge and experiences, and this is probably the easiest tasks. Secondly, we are seeking to develop a common infrastructure and a central national access point for open access scholarly books published by all types of publisher in Croatia, both small private ones and public ones. The infrastructure that would be open, not-for-profit, interoperable, and probably built as a layer upon existing successful repository network, so already existing infrastructure. And lastly, we are starting to advocate for a system of financial support mechanisms that will ensure the sustainability of book publishing within a small readership and a small market. And those mechanisms should be implemented to encompass both public and small private sector, while still upholding the open access principles. So I hope you will keep your fingers crossed for our initiative and that we will manage to be successful in at least some of our goals. Thank you.
We sure do, Eva. Good luck. Kath, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Hello, I'm Kath Burton, and I specialise in the development of our humanities portfolio at Routledge, Taylor & Francis. I'm going to talk a little bit about the initial findings from an observational study that we conducted into researcher perceptions of trust in Wikipedia. I'll talk a little bit about how we conducted the study and what our initial findings tell us about researcher views of Wikipedia citations. But first, I want to give just a little bit of context for why we're bringing these findings to the OASPA audience. Convened by Digital Science in collaboration with Routledge, Taylor & Francis and the University of Michigan Press, our study was designed to gather researchers' views on the accuracy of Wikipedia citations and author sentiment towards Wikipedia as a trusted source of information, and to also perhaps build on the growing body of research and action relating to academic Wikipedia. We hope that our study might also reveal how citation in Wikipedia could help combat misinformation in the context of increasing public engagement with and access to validated research, and to situate that investigation in the context of publisher engagement with initiatives like the Wikipedia Library that provides streamlined access to vetted Wikipedia editors to add citations to the database. We used dimensions and not metric data in Google BigQuery to build the list of publications to include in the survey, prioritizing English language citations as a starting point and publications from the last year that had at least one Wikipedia mention. The survey questions themselves were designed to solicit responses from participants about their use of Wikipedia, how accurately the citation in Wikipedia represents the content of the publication, and if authors would recommend the Wikipedia citation to their colleagues and the broader public. We also left an open question for free text responses. The overall response to the survey was very encouraging. Over 21,000 surveys were sent, producing 740 completed surveys from participants in 60 different countries. And we received responses from across humanities and social sciences and STEM disciplines. Among the 6 disciplines included, our analysis of survey responses shows that physics and mathematical sciences are the most likely to refer a Wikipedia page to both a colleague and the wider public, with social sciences and humanities being the least likely to do the same thing. We'd love to explore this finding in a little bit more detail, so if anyone has any information that they'd like to share with us about why some disciplines more than others are perhaps more likely to recommend a Wikipedia citation, please do be in touch. We've only had space today to introduce some of the very preliminary findings in this poster, and we have perhaps many more unanswered questions arising from the study. But our analysis is starting to draw out some common themes, such as researcher trust in Wikipedia is potentially enhanced by the perceived benefit of citation in this public-facing database. The use of Wikipedia as a research and teaching tool supports the perception of Wikipedia as a trusted site of information. Wikipedia research citations often distill global research. This has the potential to make access to and discussion of a broader range of published research more equitable. Research citations added to Wikipedia may accelerate access to sources of published research. And finally, although some recent studies do tie an increase in support for Wikipedia citation to OA publication, our analysis does not show a difference, statistically speaking, in participant responses if authors had published open access or not. However, some participants mentioned that they considered OA publication to be a potential contributing factor to increasing public engagement with research, with others commenting, and I quote, "How nice it would be if Wikipedia cited articles were open to the public." So in summary, our survey results indicate that accurate citations added to Wikipedia may contribute to its trustworthiness and primarily serve as a funnel into validated published research. Further interrogation of how deeply researchers value Wikipedia research citations, especially from a multilingual perspective, combined with publisher efforts to facilitate access to research, will help continue to build trust in Wikipedia citations as the scholarly communication landscape moves more towards open. Thank you very much.
Wow, that's bang on 4 minutes, Kath. Thank you so much. Okay, we are going to pause for questions, restarting my timer here. If you have any questions for the presenters, please go ahead and drop them into the Q&A. I see a little red dot there, so I'm going to open the Q&A myself. Okay, great. So I'm just making reference to the Q&A box, and we have a question for you, Moore. If you don't mind addressing this question verbally, the participants picking up on your reference to interactive publishing, and we're wondering how you keep up on the latest technologies.
Yeah, well, we always have the feeling that we might be a bit behind. We mainly use at the moment pop-up and manifold, and we're now actually looking into moving altogether to manifold for different reasons. Mainly just surfing the web a lot, and we do have some partners, for example, the Center of Trial and Error, also here in the Netherlands, that we work together closely with. They help us in publishing some of our books, and they have a very strong IT team as well that knows. One of their team members also works with pop-up, and we know of, we just hear more often about any new technologies coming out. So I think maintaining a network around these things is very important, as well as just keeping up research.
You're here. Good points. Thank you. Kath, let's take that next question. So the question is, what will Taylor and Francis do next with these findings? And are you advocating for researchers to use Wikipedia?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I think the possibilities might be endless there, but I think in the first instance, we want to continue writing up all of our analysis and making sure that we're presenting that as clearly as possible. So that'll be a collaborative effort with our colleagues at Digital Science and the University of Michigan Press. But from a Taylor and Francis perspective, I think there's some real benefit for us really digging into what researchers value most about Wikipedia. Our survey found that there are many more uses in teaching rather than research. So that presents some issues and some questions for us perhaps to sort of explore a little bit further. But there's what we also found from the survey responses was that there's a real will to try and build a little bit more positivity around Wikipedia as a trusted source of information. And that really helps to produce a really fair and equitable knowledge exchange, and that's something that we really are standing behind. So I think it's a kind of a watch this space at the moment. There are probably some technical things that we might be able to do with our platform vis-a-vis Wikipedia, but certainly initiatives like the Wikipedia library are going to be things that we look to expand and include all of our content in. So at the moment we only have a selected amount of journal articles in there at the moment, and for us to be truly representative and truly open to possibilities, we perhaps need to have all of our content in there.
Excellent. Thanks so much. With one more minute, I wonder if I could ask a question. Any of you may want to ask, but Eva, I wanted to pick up on your comment about authors writing in the Croatian language and the limited audience for that. And I wonder if the group can just remind me, are there tools that are useful for translating things at a quality that's useful, you know, automated mechanisms? Or could you tell us a little bit more about that? I just don't know.
Well, I guess that the tools, we all know what tools are there and how helpful they are. I guess that I come from the humanities and social sciences, so we are a bit more careful about the language, and probably using automatic translation is not so satisfactory here. But also when you have a smaller language, a corpus of training for the automated tools is also smaller, so the quality of translations is always lower for smaller languages than for languages with a large user base. So I guess it will be helpful, but not yet really, not enough at least.
That helps. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our next batch. So we have great presentations. By the way, thank you, crew, for starting us off on a strong foot. We are going to do Anita, James, and Ursula. So let me do my thing. Okay, Anita, if that is your poster, please go ahead.
That's it. Thanks so much, Jen, and hi, everyone. In my poster talk, I would like to make you familiar with Bison, our open access journal recommender. And as the description says, Bison is a member of the journal recommender family, as I like to call it, of which we see quite a few representatives of the web lately. But nonetheless, we saw the need of a genuinely open, publisher-independent, sustainably developed tool with a focus on the research community's interests. And so Bison only recommends open access journals. It is open source, both the recommendation algorithm as well as the front end. And Bison uses data sources that are openly licensed and community built, only such data sources. And the data sources we use are article level metadata and journal metadata from the DOAJ, as well as a citation database provided by Open Citations, the COPI DOI to DOI citation corpus. And our third data resource is the journal checker tool in order to show plan as compliance for the recommended journals. So if you look at the graphic in the middle of the poster, showing the functional principle of Bison in a simplified manner, first of all, the use case of Bison is a researcher with a manuscript to be published, looking for a suitable open access journal for whatever reason this may be. Even though many researchers make that choice for a journal in other ways, there are many situations where a tool like Bison can support that decision. And so, as always, there is an input and an output and an algorithm in between. And the input is obviously parts of the manuscript in question, title, abstracts, and references. And the output is a list of suitable OA journals ranked by a score. And the score is indicated if the journal has published articles that deal with the same or similar research topics like the input manuscript. And this score is composed of the similarity of first title and abstract as the textual elements of the input in comparison to the article metadata corpus. And second, the matching of the references against cookie for the bibliometric level. And these two factors are then normalized and combined by a neural network to create an overall score. And for each journal, users can directly look up the articles where Bison has found similarities. This is a feature that I personally find really nice and helpful. So please consider giving Bison a try. It's quite intuitive to use. I give the URL in the chat. And yeah, please give us feedback. If you have any, either via the like feedback button on the bottom of the Bison website or via email. I give that in the chat after the talk. But before I get to the end, there is a recent development I would like to draw your attention on, also highlighted in the dark box on the right side of the poster. And this is the option of setting up institution-specific Bison versions. This is a service mainly aimed at libraries, which can then integrate their own Bison version or the Bison version for their institution into their websites. And we are kind of a better phase with this, also focusing on German institutions at the moment, but we are quite happy how things are progressing. The setup process is very straightforward and simple. And we would love feedback on that also from the international community, of course. So we have put some information on that on our project website and give that in the chat as well. So I'd be happy to hear from you if that sounds interesting to you and to answer any questions. Thanks.
Super. Thank you so much, Anita. Let's go to James.
You're from New Zealand. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right. I'm down in Invercargill at the bottom end of the country, and I'm talking to you about our initiative pushing forward Diamond Open Access across the tertiary vocational education space in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm the research coordinator of the Southern Institute of Technology, which is now part of Te Pukenga, which is a new tertiary education organization formed by merging all the existing institutes of technology and polytechnics and all the industry training organizations in the country into one giant entity. Now, prior to that merger, 6, depending on exactly how you count publications, of the formerly independent parts of it were publishing journals and other types of academic publications. 2 of them particularly active university presses effectively, a Unitec and a Otago Polytechnic, lots of activity going on across the network. So with this merger occurring, we thought it prudent to try and put a steer on the organization alongside, along the lines of an open access direction, especially since the general public funding policy towards open access in Aotearoa New Zealand has only really been implemented this year. And we did that by setting up Te Pukenga Publishing Group, which at present is still a semi-unofficial grouping of the publishing active people within these now divisions of this bigger organization. So I want to make it clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of Te Pukenga in terms of official policy, just our publishing group within it. So we had to think, and we decided that, and we had a good basis for Diamond Open Access across the network already, decided that Diamond Open Access was the only legitimate way forward, and that we wanted to unify our processes and practices across the network on that model. This is particularly useful considering most of our journals are quite small, as with most Diamond Open Access journals, less than 1 FTE staffing, and all of them struggle a little bit with continuity as people come and go and with the general economies of scale. So this unified model hopefully helps us provide a more unified system of publishing in this new national network. So far, we've managed to establish our little publishing group, and we have managed to convert our remaining traditionally published journals to Diamond Open Access this year. We're still trying to set up our formal publishing strategy and figure out our resourcing, and restructurings of the organizations are going on at the moment, which is obviously complicating things. And our plan is to implement these best practice guidelines across all of these other publications as well, with a view to ultimately empowering groups that have traditionally found it harder to publish, particularly Maori, given our context within the public sector of New Zealand. And obviously we're at OASPA because this is a great place to understand current best practices, get ideas, get feedback from everyone here, and understand the systems and the potential funding models that we might use going forward. I think that's all I have to say, but happy to hear feedback and take questions, and looking forward to discussing with everyone and seeing all the other presentations. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you, James. All right, one more, Ursula, and then we will break for questions.
Hi everyone, my name is Ursula. I'm the community manager for the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust effort funded by the Mellon Foundation. And in today's presentation, I will share more about this effort and its current activities that you can also get involved with. Let me start by mentioning the known challenges for individual organizations when aggregating open access book usage data to make strategic decisions about their open access publishing or programs. They individually manage, compile, and link usage data metrics, making it time-consuming. Additionally, they may face resource challenges in adopting Counter and instead use and rely on Google Analytics, for example, that further complicates usage data interoperability. While many deliver trusted usage metrics through Counter-compliant reports, aggregating usage metrics across platforms is not common. So the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust has taken on the task to address this challenge by piloting the industry data space model in scholarly communications. You might ask, why has this effort adopted this particular model and what does it entail? The mentioned data aggregation challenge extends beyond scholarly communication. You find this in banking, health, or even automobile industries. These industries have already adopted the same model successfully. Additionally, to address such issues across more industries in an interoperable way, various European agencies have supported this model for data sharing through a neutral intermediary that is as open as possible, but as controlled as necessary. The data space aims to provide a digital infrastructure to foster the exchange and computation of data among public and private competitors to generate value through increased interoperability, trust in a secure and transparent exchange, and multi-party data governance through usage controls and community-based accountability measures. You can read the reports and foundational work shown on the poster linked as well in the OASPA conference program on our Zenodo community, and they will tell you a little bit more how we came to this conclusion and why has this model been chosen. To answer your potential question on where we are at in the process, let me share that currently we are developing the principles that generate trust through the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust participation, usage data management, processing, and provision. This will be gathered in a document called the Open Access Book Usage Data Exchange and Stewardship Rulebook once finalized. And we very much rely on the community to help us with this by providing feedback and input on the drafted principles. There is one community consultation currently open that I will share the link for in the chat after my presentation. I will also share the link if you wish to sign up to focus groups that we are planning for the end of this year and other future community consultations. Finally, you're welcome to email me directly at the email address on the poster with any questions or comments. And of course, I'm happy to answer them as well today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ursula. Okay, starting the timer once again for some questions. Vincent, is that all? If that question for the Q&A box, I'm going to open the Q&A box now. Okay, Anita, we'll start with you, please. So we have a question about how Bison might differ from Think, Check, Submit.
Yeah, I answered that question in the Q&A box. So, but I can I can answer that. Bison uses the input data, and through this, the algorithm that I described, it detects similarities within the already published OA literature, and then it gives a similarity score for each journal. And also it points out where the similarities have been found exactly. So this is not be done by think, check, submit, as far as I know. And yeah, that's I think the difference. But also Bison concentrates on OA journals, and think, check, submit, yeah, does not have the scope of only OA journals.
Super, thank you. James, I'm going to go to that third question about converting traditional journals to Diamond, and wondering what you see as the top barrier in making that shift and how you're taking that on.
So it's the resourcing for sure, and it's the a combination, I would say, of the resourcing and sometimes the norms of the different fields in question. Can I answer the other kind of question at the same time, because it kind of ties in with the sort of funding model sustainability question? Yeah. So in our case, we have a slightly different context than some other situations, because many of our tertiary educators are from industry rather than from an academic background, and we also have a very local community focus. And one of the results of that is that staff often need a bit more professional development around how journal and academic publishing works, and so it's a lot easier to support some of these journals internally with internal from staff time within our own organizations, if the objective is also staff development by helping them understand and get through the process of writing and then publishing an academic article. So it's seen as more of an internal thing as well. And in terms of how they're supported, they're all supported essentially, all of our journals at the moment, through mostly between sort of 0.2 and 0.6 FTE of people. Some of them are in learning support services, some of them are research officers, some of them are in a sort of separate little publishing division, but they're all sort of scattered all over the place. And one of the things we're trying to do is understand how those different models are working in different parts of the organization, and then try and unify them, figure out how much time we need, because that makes it more sustainable and more consistent, and we can start sharing time and resources across the different parts of the network.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to the next batch of questions. So if there are any questions outstanding in the Q&A box, panelists, please go ahead and answer them. For the next batch, please do not answer questions in the box, because we want to capture them for the recording if we possibly have time. So we are now going to go to Janet, then Scott, then Saba, then Rob. So bear with me. Okay, Janet, if that looks good, please take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you about this Open Access Australasia project that we did last year. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Irraganji people of the Jabbergai Nation in far north Queensland in Australia. And so this project we did last year, we wanted to compare research sectors across Australia and Aotearoa New Zealand. We looked at universities, health, government, and non-profit research active institutions, looking to see what their institutional practice was. So we looked for policies, statements, guidelines, evidence of repositories, and evidence of open access publishing of books or journals. And we designed a methodology to search a variety of different places to try to find this information, mostly though doing institutional website searching. And what you see in the first graph there is the overview, where the initiatives along the bottom axis and the number of institutions on the vertical axis. And we divided them by sector. So the blue is the university, which shows the greatest overall open access practice. And the purple is health, which actually had the least. Government is green, which shows most prevalent in repository use. And you can also see there's a lot of gaps where things are missing. There was virtually no institutional position statements on open access. There was fewer policies than we expected to find. And the policies we did find weren't making any provision for Indigenous research or data. That wasn't a consideration. And then, so moving on, we took what we found in terms of the institutional initiatives and compared them to the average rates of open access outputs by institution. And to do that, we used the Curtin Open Knowledge Initiative. And what we were wanting to find was what was the relationship between institutional practice and institutional open output. And we found that there really wasn't a relationship. In fact, the reverse of what we expected to find. Universities with the greatest institutional practice had the lowest average rate of open access outputs, and health, which had the lowest institutional practice, had the second highest in terms of their actual open output. So that was an interesting finding that we weren't necessarily expecting. We also looked to use the COKI dashboard to look at the diversity of ways that institutions are taking to make their output open. And these two graphs at the bottom here, one shows the red columns there is the journal path to open access, and the green is what COKI refers to as other platform, which is basically repositories or preprints. And you can see that sectors are different. Universities and government are more towards the repository route than the journal route. And then the second graph shows within that other pathway than journal, shows that even within repositories, there's a difference in use. So universities and health, this green bar shows the institutional repository, whereas if you look at nonprofit and health, the blue bar is a domain repository such as PubMed. So the point being that there are very diverse ways that people are making their research open, and that we need to bear that in mind going forward, that bibliodiversity is really important. And those are just some highlights of the report. It is out on Zenodo if anyone wants to read it. It's linked from the poster. And yeah, I look forward very much to the other presentations, and I'm happy to take any questions or feedback. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Janet. Scott, over to you. Hong Kong. Hello, Hong Kong.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Okay, I'm starting your timer now. Go ahead.
Okay, so greetings from Hong Kong, where I am talking about Gigabyte Journal and a particular case study. We're a data journal, and this example gets across the concept of data mobilization campaigns, targeted data publishing. So the poster here is a static representation of a journal using a novel platform built by River Valley Technologies, XML first, that has lots of interactive features. There's little static pop-ups demonstrating these. But the bigger picture thing that I want to get across in the next couple of minutes is this concept of targeted data mobilization. There are particularly crucial data gaps, data sets that you really need to get out, and for quite small amounts of funding, you can target this. In this particular case, the WHO sponsored a call to get vectors of human disease data, the horrible, nasty, creepy crawlies that cause 17% of human infectious diseases, and there's a big shortage of this data. They sponsored the APCs, And crucially, they also sponsored a data help desk. Both of these reducing the barriers to share this. We did a big call in the first phase. More than half the submissions were Latin America. In the second phase, most of the submissions have been from Africa and Southeast Asia. Over 70 countries data came from, over 650,000 observations, many different data types. This platform had some extra, bells and whistles that helped. We have multilingual functionality, can publish multiple languages, toggle between these. Because it's embedded in the XML, it also ends up in PubMed Central. Interactive maps and the data sets embedded in the paper, making them easier to access, understand, figure out where all of this comes from. But this targeted data mobilization concept can work for any data journal, really. The key thing is really identifying the data gaps and then really promoting promoting the submission of these, and also working with the database. This was a project with GBIF, the biodiversity database, who hosted and worked with the authors to get the data into this repository. But yeah, the key question to get out there is what are the crucial data gaps that people need? Promote this, this particular case study, we've published an umbrella paper. I'm really kind of going into the details here. I'll post the link into the chat, and I am very happy to answer any questions on this. So, looking forward to seeing the other talks as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Scott. We're going to go to Saba.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you. I'm going to be talking about a pilot project that we've been doing at the TU Delft Open Publishing, and with some colleagues who work in fair data and fair software in the Netherlands. So essentially, this project is still kind of still mostly in the early stages. And so I started talking about why we were thinking of doing this project to start with. There's an increasing recognition that data and software are also valid research outputs. So that kind of leads to the question of whether data and software should also be peer-reviewed, as written material often is. It would help make the methodology of data production more open and transparent. Data peer and software peer review would also help us promote the principles of open science, fair data and software, particularly by enhancing reproducibility and through optimizing the reuse of data. So as it's a pilot project, we've been experimenting with different ways of doing data and software peer review to begin with in the TU Delft institutional context. And our idea at the end of the pilot is to come up with a set of policy guidelines and recommendations in which we can think about ways in which, at least at our institution, we can make this a more sustainable practice. But being that it is a pilot project and that it is inherently more kind of experimental, we've emerged with also a set of questions to which we don't necessarily have answers, but which we would like to try and answer, or at least think about the answers to, along with others who are interested in the field. So some of the key questions we've come up with is, of course, who would conduct this peer review and what additional skills and resources we would need in the process. There's a really important question of rewards and recognition. So both for authors, what are the incentives for authors to have their data and software peer reviewed, and what kind of credit and recognition can we award to reviewers? We recently had an interesting workshop where we were trying out a training with some people who work with code review, and we were trying to train some of our graduate students who are at TU Delft to understand the principles of code review better. And one of the things that one of the code reviewers mentioned is, of course, linking code reviewing to your ORCID profiles. That was one. Again, none of these are definitive answers, but these are just things that people have been suggesting. With the question of data in particular, there was a question of how to account for different disciplinary standards, as of course, how data is produced, stored, and managed differs from different fields and research groups and disciplines. And finally, I've saved the most existential question for last, which is peer review even the right term? And I think this is also something we need to think about, both because what we're talking about may not be related to what we associate peer review with, and also because peer review itself is a concept that's in question. And so it's something that we need to think about. But thank you, and I look forward to any feedback and questions.
Thank you so much, Saba. And Scott, let's not lose that question. Rob, let's have you close us out.
Thanks, Jennifer, and well done to everyone if you've made it through all 32 posters this week. So it's a pleasure to be the last one to share this. So I'll just add a link to the chat. So my name is Rob Johnson. I'm the founder and managing director of Research Consulting. We've worked support organizations with the transition to open science for the last decade or so. So some of you will be aware that back in May, the Council of the European Union issued a call for policies towards a scholarly publishing model that's not for profit, open access and multi-format with no costs for authors or readers. And a lot of the other posters we've seen today and yesterday and earlier this week have been looking at ways, I think, to address that need, not just in Europe, but globally. So the poster that we've put together is building on some work that I've done over the last sort of 12 months and a little more for the European Commission, looking at how to develop its Open Research Europe publishing platform into something that is based on open source technology and that is not for profit and that is collectively funded. And what I've tried to do from that is just take out some of the key questions and challenges that any not-for-profit publishing platform that is looking to either be created or potentially to scale up is going to need to tackle. And what you can see here, this is essentially a tool called the Non-Profit Business Model Canvas. It's something that we found really helpful for any kind of not-for-profit organization or open infrastructure, just to think through, what are you trying to do? How are you going to do it? And who are you going to engage with? So just to highlight a few things, if we pick the colors on here, the bit in the center with the gold is about the social value proposition and governance. And I think the key point here is just being open access is not enough. You have to have a really clear social value proposition that's serving a particular group or community. And you need to have an appropriate governance and legal structure and think about how you'll engage with your communities through those mechanisms. On the left-hand side in the sort of bluey gray, that's essentially about what you're going to do as a platform and being really clear about your activities, who you partner with, what resources you're going to need, and of course, how much that is going to cost. And on the right-hand side in the pink, it's about how you're going to engage with people externally. So who are you going to create this platform with? How will you relate to them? What channels will you use? And of course, where is the money going to come from to cover those costs? And in a sense, this doesn't give you the answers, but I think what it does do is give you some of the questions that you need to work through in any sort of not-for-profit initiative. And I think probably the lesson you can take from this is that if you can go through this and you can answer these questions, you've got a clear social value proposition, you know what your activities are, your engagement strategy, where your costs and revenue is going to come from, that puts you in a really strong position to answer that call from the European Council and indeed, I think, from the research community more generally. So thank you very much, everyone. And I'll share a link for more information on this work.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Okay, so we are going to close out with a few minutes for questions. There are gremlins in the question queue, so I'm losing track a little bit. But Scott, I saw that one from Yvonne. So, so credit to you for a fantastic project. You know, I'm also wondering, you know, the fact that we're so targeted and focused, did that help you to overcome any of the standard barriers to do with researcher engagement, and what was the costs of, you know, funding like?
So yeah, but like a good question. That, you know, they also asked, you know, how did you you know, overcome, you know, barriers of reluctance to share? we did self-select to, the people who submitted to us are the people who want to share anyway, right? The people who don't want to share will unfortunately not submit to not submit in this way. But we try to like remove all of the as many barriers as we can, lower the friction on this, and that cover the incentive is a publication in an area that they don't normally get publications. The barriers are cost, which and also it's difficult to share this data. The help desk and the sponsorship of the APCs help that. I don't know how much the WHO spent on running the help desk. They paid for a contractor for 6 months. That's a cost. But in terms of the publications, having this was an advantage of our XML first workflow and journal. This journal Gigabyte, because the production is 95% automated, that means our APCs are only $400 an article. So that was I think part of the reason we won the bid. But you basically just have to cover the APCs and pay for a certain amount of curation, but it's not huge. It's not huge amounts of money, and you can get a lot of targeted, very important data out of it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Scott. So Saba, let's take that next question. So, what's your long-term view on the sustainability of review of data?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say that I think the sense I get more and more from talking to people is that it really does vary across disciplines. And I think that it will, at the moment, at least, it seems to come down to what disciplinary practices are. And I think that's kind of the closest that I think we've come to an answer so far. I don't even know if in all disciplines it would be possible to do data peer review. And I think the standards, and we tried to come up with, for instance, a template with really, really basic guidelines that we hoped could be applicable to at least multiple contexts, but even those turned out not to be general enough. So I think this is really, I think the more I think about it, the more it's a question of the specificity of the research field, and that's where we're going to have to find our answer. I hope that answers it.
That'll do. Thank you so much. I'm going to close this out there. I'm going to ask the panelists to stick around and answer any additional questions or questions that may be hanging around in the chat or the Q&A. Credit to the organizers for pulling the posters together this way, because we've traversed territory from open access books through to code and data, whilst also taking a step back and looking at models for open access and policies and adoption in different communities. So really getting a full picture of the landscape that we're traversing together here. So well done to the presenters. Thank you very much for your time and your presentations. We're going to break now for 15 minutes and resume the final day of the presentation. So see you back here in 15 minutes.